Afternoon and welcome back, esteemed colleagues, as we kick off the fall 2020 semester and the start of a new academic year. I'm Simine Levinson. I'm a faculty member in the College of Health Solutions, and I'm honored to serve this year as president of the University Senate. This is not just the start of another school year, it feels new in numerous ways. We're having our first academic assembly on Zoom. We're now operating with the addition of a new learning environment. ASU Sync is a third learning modality in addition to existing asynchronous iCourses and ASU online courses. ASU Sync is truly remarkable and offers unparalleled flexibility for us as faculty and academic professionals to meet the unique learning needs of our students during the pandemic and in the post-pandemic world. ASU Sync is here to stay, and we're demonstrating our commitment to it. Technology, faculty have been engaged with ongoing ASU Sync training, classroom technology options, and learning a plethora of new technology and remote teaching tools like Zoom, Slack, Ally, MediaAmp, Screencast-O-Matic, Respondents, and YellowDig, and these are just to name a few. We're demonstrating our ability to be highly resilient and creative in adapting to this new learning environment. And I've been hearing about the innovative ways in which ASU faculty are connecting with students and helping them to engage with each other in remote and hybrid settings, from using gaming technology like Kahoots to designing virtual Google classrooms. Many of our younger students are already familiar with these tools. While I find some of the technology to be overwhelming and intimidating at times, I'm inspired by my colleagues who make it look easy and are always willing to provide their tips, pitfalls, and success stories. And like you, I continue to be deeply inspired by my students. And although I miss seeing their bright faces because they're covered with masks or clouded by a computer screen, their energy, vitality, and eagerness to learn and discover is infectious and reminds me why I chose this career in higher education. Traditionally, during the fall and spring academic assemblies, we would gather at our home campuses to greet our colleagues and welcome new faces while enjoying refreshments, and I dearly miss the complimentary wine. We would come together to hear remarks from President Crow, but I suspect the spread of hors d'oeuvres and booze may have been a bigger attractor for some of us. And although our in-person gatherings are currently limited, our ability to connect with each other is unlimited. Technological advancements in meeting platforms has removed barriers, such as needing to stay on campus for late afternoon meetings, fighting rush hour traffic, and for some of us that may include looking professional from the waist down. Since the start of this coronavirus pandemic, I've noticed an increase in participation by faculty in work-related interactions and in faculty meetings. The level of engagement is significantly higher and growing. Last March, the dean of my college, Dr. Deborah Hellitzer, started sending out emails detailing silver linings. These messages are inspiring. They'll highlight the achievements of talented CHS faculty, staff, and students, and may often include a call to action to get involved with COVID relief efforts and to increase engagement in our own personal health and wellness, in supporting one another and helping our communities, because we have so much to offer. The start of this semester has not been without its challenges, but I hope you'll join me in finding the silver linings. It feels good for me to be in real clothes, out of my house, and in my campus office. So I welcome you back to ASU and welcome to the fall 2020 semester. And with that, I'll turn it over to President Crow for his welcome and his remarks. Welcome, President Crow, and thank you.
Thank you, Simine. Very happy to be here, to have an opportunity to just welcome everybody back for the start of the fall semester. If anything, for those of us that have lived as long as I have, which is too many fall semesters probably, but you know, this is the most unusual one, but nonetheless, we're up and running and moving forward. We have record enrollment in our fall semester. We have about a 7.5% increase in the number of students who are pursuing degrees with us this semester. We have tremendous enthusiasm coming from our students. I just spent with Provost Searle an hour with our student government leaders yet this afternoon, and it's unbelievable. They're thankful to all of you on the faculty for all that you are doing, and the staff that's supporting everything. They're excited to be in their classes. Their constituents are excited to be in their classes. They're happy that they have these choices. They're like, well, I really like to just stay in my apartment and Zoom into my classes, and I'm going to my lab class. And I went to my lab class, and another one said, and she had the entire lab bench just for herself. And then one of the elected student body leaders is in the law school, and he was also speaking positively and favorably. They reflect a consistency with the number of students I've been talking to on all of the campuses in the last few weeks, down on the ground, and just sort of seeing how things are going. And our students are happy that they have found a way to engage with us, which is recognizing the complexities of the virus, allowing them to have flexibility in their life. The thing that we hear over and over is that they get to make a choice. They can Zoom in if they're anxious. They can Zoom in if I've talked to a few people who they're symptomatic of this or that. They're not sure what they have, so they say, well, I'll just stay home, which they need to do, and just sort of engage with all of us. And so that seems very, very positive. The faculty have been, and staff supporting them have been fantastically hard at work the last many weeks since the end of the spring semester. Record enrollment in summer school, record proposal submissions that we've got going on, not only for COVID-related things, but all kinds of things. New faculty hiring, new teams being brought on board, new labs being set up, new creative expressive spaces being put in place. All these things are ongoing and moving forward. The university is also continuing to do its work, its financial work, its budget work, and so forth and so on. And you might have noticed that we haven't had to do what several other universities have done, which is to make dramatic financial adjustments, and we're still staying the course. We're still making progress in terms of maintaining the financial integrity of the institution. It is a very complicated moment financially, because if we've lost any students at all, I mean, the only category of students, I think this is right, Mark Searle, that we've lost is international students. And even those, we've only lost those that couldn't get back to us. And so those are ones that want to be here but can't be here. They can't get here. And so it's a tremendous vote of confidence in ASU to see enrollment increases for out-of-state students, in-state students, transfer students, and then everything but international students. And then the demand for our online programs, which are unlike the degree programs being offered by lots of other universities online. Ours are by our faculty, our creativity, our work, our pedagogical design. And so, and students from all over the country are being attracted to these courses. All in all, we're in a difficult moment, but one that I think that our institution is rising to. We have returned about 12,000 students, give or take, to the residence halls. Now, our residence halls and our associated facilities hold about 18,000. So obviously we're not going to, make these places super crowded, et cetera, et cetera. And we are advancing on that front. We have accelerated all things. You'll be getting notifications if you haven't been doing your Safe Health, your Health Check app. You need to do your Health Check app, or you're going to start to get harassed. And you're going to get harassed by constantly having to reset your password. So the Health Check app is a part of the ASU Community of Care plan, and it's the way that we are making certain that people are symptomatic or staying away from campus. It's the way that we're checking in on you and getting a sense of how you're doing, as well as guiding you to some healthcare options if you need those. Everybody should have gotten, I hope they did, their Community of Care package. We had 150,000 of these constructed with thermometers, masks, sanitizers, everything that you need in the new modern world. We didn't make it as a belt attachment, but we could have. And so all of those are out and moving forward. And then on testing, we've tested we've tested or had tested by others, including our students that were arriving into the residence halls, which needed a negative test to be able to be admitted to the residence halls, about 34,000 people since the beginning of August. And I'm going to put out some notes later in terms of what we're doing in terms of positivity and so forth. It's complicated. We have less than 200 positive cases in our community as of yesterday. And that's not on campus. That's everywhere. That's, people not living on campus, people living on campus, and so forth. So we'll get you some details on that as we go forward. We're not taking the view that we're going to put a purple marker on the residence halls where students that have tested positive are living. We are, however, going to report our positivity data in aggregate. And we're also reporting our positivity data in our zip code reports. And there are 6 zip codes that our ASU student community really lives in. We're working to get authorization from the state to give you more data on those zip codes. And we're negotiating that right now. Professor Woodbury can talk about that later. And that's where we are relative to what we're doing there. We're probably getting something like 98% plus, 99% plus compliance with our community of care requirements. Don't believe everything that you read in the newspaper by any means, but understand that we do have students that have assembled for or been a part of assemblies for parties and so forth and so on. And when we find out who those students are, they're suspended. And so, or worse, if they were the perpetrators of the parties. And so suffice it to say that we're holding people accountable for their conduct and for their behavior. And if they can't live within the community of care, then they can't be a part of our community. That's our basic theory going forward with these kinds of things. We are not seeing heavy loads in the classrooms. Large numbers of students are zooming in. We're not sure exactly the logic for each class. There's so many individual classes and so forth and so on, but so we're not seeing that. We're not seeing large foot traffic on campus or people on campus. People seem to be coming and not staying, although our facilities are available to them in their dispersed and distributed format. I think if I was going to say anything to the faculty writ large, I would say I hope that each of you are using this as an opportunity to basically say, how creative can I be? How creative can I be in my teaching? How creative can I be in my interaction with students? What other ways can I do things? Could I flip my lectures? Could I produce my lectures on Zoom and record them like this meeting is being recorded? Get those to the students and then meet in Zoom or in person with smaller groups of students. Could I shift to evening activities? How flexible can we be in terms of moving forward? We have greatly expanded the outdoor furniture on our campuses. We've built some outdoor classrooms that are just coming online in different campuses. And so we've got these things moving forward. All of the projects that we've got going on, all the construction projects of the university, of which there are many, new research facilities and dormitory facilities and creativity facilities in downtown Phoenix. Brand new dormitory facility opened on the Polytechnic campus, massive new research facilities and support facilities on the Tempe campus. I won't walk you through all of them. Thunderbird School of Global Management, all under construction. All of that has continued. All of the services of the institution have continued. Some are being tele-delivered, some are being personally delivered. As well as, again, just to reemphasize again, testing systems. I see Professor LeBaire is on here, and his leadership of the Biodesign Institute and the team there has really led to us having unique, highly capable, very advanced, ultra advanced, high speed, high accuracy testing, which we're deploying to help us to manage the moment that we're in. Let me turn to this moment that we're in just for a second. So we made the decision, some of you may not agree with this decision, that you can't wait the virus out. It's not going to go away. And just stop for a second and just process that. It doesn't mean that there won't be a vaccine and that won't be helpful. It doesn't mean that there won't be suppression of social spread. There is suppression of social spread in Arizona. We've made huge progress in the last few weeks. And I think Dr. Woodbury or Neil Woodbury, wouldn't you say that, aren't we back to where we were prior to the reopening? Aren't we about back at that zone, Josh or Neil?
We're right about at the end of May, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've gone back in time. And so then that puts us in a situation that we think is much more favorable. We wouldn't have been able to reconfigure the way we are now if we were where we were in July. We just wouldn't be able to do that, or June. And so we're excited about that. There's a lot of things going on. Obviously, I received since June hundreds of ideas about how to make the university more inclusive, more socially just, more anti-racist, more equitable, and all of those things. And we will be announcing a number of rapid initiatives that we're going to put in place at the beginning here of the semester, and you'll be hearing from me shortly about those. Some fantastic ideas, lots of things. There were a lot of things that people gave us as ideas that we heard multiple times. You know, the need for a multicultural assembly center for students to be able to get together, and we're going to begin thinking that through and designing that and working on that. The reconceptualization of how can we educate our faculty, our staff, and our students all to be anti-racists as opposed to just not racist. And we can spend some time talking about that. We're talking about making some dramatic enhancements in pathways for faculty hiring, for diversified faculty, faculty of color, and Black faculty in particular. We found units within the university that have never hired a Black faculty member. That's impossible. I mean, it's impossible. It has to be remedied. And so how we remedy it and how we move forward, we're going to be launching those things immediately. And while we're doing that, we're also going to be taking a somewhat more difficult task of, and you'll hear more about this in the next couple of weeks, of looking back at what is it about ASU that has allowed us to have a very diverse student body after having not had a very diverse student body, and not having as diverse a faculty as we should have. And so what is it about us that has led to that? What is it about how we hire and how we do this and how we do that and so forth? So we're going to take a hard look at ourselves. And then from that hard look at ourselves, I'm always a big believer, then you come up with the things that you need to do differently. And so we're going to be going forward with a number of initiatives. We're going to be investing resources. We're going to be investing time and energy and facilities into making these things happen. I think that it goes without saying for this group that you know, we have to lead the way. We have to be the most evolved that we possibly can be as an institution to create the kinds of thinkers and leaders for tomorrow that we really need to be doing, really need to be producing. I think what I'll say about going forward is that, as the other members of the executive committee know, who are now meeting twice a day, just constantly, this is a very, very complicated moment. There is social scale fear. There is individual level anxiety. There is, we were dealing with very complicated issues with our students, anxiety and panic attacks, and just from what they're living through. And I'm sure that in your families and in even in my family, in all of the circumstances, we're dealing with all of these things. And so in all of that, we're hell bent for one thing: find a way where we can continue to make progress and continue to create as healthy an environment as we possibly can. How can we do those two things? And that will mean then that we will, and we are going to continue to make adjustments. We aren't doing intercollegiate sports this semester. This is a huge thing, huge. And you might not think it's huge, but it's huge. That's an adjustment. We're going to accelerate our random testing to 25% of our population per week. So you're going to start getting dinged. We need you to get tested, and we're doing that so that we can have a very good picture of what's going on. We've already made some adjustments relative to a couple of living arrangements that are in our facilities where we don't think they're conducive to limiting spread. So those places are no longer assembled. And so we're making adjustments in living arrangements. We're making adjustments in testing. We're making adjustments in everything. We're making you all are making adjustments. You're making adjustments about, well, I'm going to need to zoom in, or I'm going to have to do this, or I'm going to have to do that, or I'm going to have to meet with my students in a different way. And they're making adjustments. And so the key here is us all working together to find a way to keep the institution making progress. One of the things that we get out of the testing is, being aware of how we're doing and what's going on. And we're getting data now that, requires us to look at this and say, okay, well, what does this mean? Or what does this mean? Or what might that mean? And then maybe we should do this, and maybe we should do that. And the details are not as important as we have one objective. The objective is for the institution to function in this particular moment of time, as we have been over the last many months. Having said that, the staff and the faculty of this institution have been fantastic. I mean, just literally fantastic. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I think it's unprecedented in the whole country. We don't have unanimity of views here. I don't think we've ever had that. I don't know if we could ever get that. But we're moving forward, and we're attempting to be responsive to every individual, and we're attempting to empower every individual along the way. Somebody said, well, will you close the university when you get a positive case? I'm like, we got a positive case in January. 27,000 people signed a petition that said we should have closed the university back then in March. 27,000 people. We modified the university. We went to our sync mode. We didn't have testing technology. We didn't have the health app. We didn't understand completely the value of the masking. We didn't have a complete understanding of our air handling systems and all the other things that we now understand. And so now in this semester, we're coming back with all these tools, and we're approaching this in this different approach. If this works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, then we'll shift back to a different modality, and we'll do that when we think this particular pathway isn't working for whatever reason. And so I think with that, Samin, I don't know if Samin, I don't know if we can do questions or not. I'm happy to answer some questions or not. That's up to you. So I can answer your questions or people that I can see on the screen, but I can't see all 319 people, so.
Sure thing, Dr. Crow. No, we actually don't have questions prepared for you, but I do want to thank you for your remarks and your acknowledgement that we are living in a difficult time and that we're all rising to the challenges that are being presented to us as we advance the university and as we move forward. Faculty have been demonstrating their resilience and their creativity in the ways that they're redesigning their courses to be adaptable within ASU Sync and in the ways that we engage with our students and with our colleagues across the institution. And I'm grateful that you mentioned these issues of multiculturalism and anti-racism, because these are of critical importance to our faculty. And these are issues that are being raised as we speak. And this is really what prompted having this panel discussion that will follow these remarks. And faculty look forward to helping to develop and participating these initiatives, which include diversifying our student body, as well as hiring a greater number of faculty of color within the institution. So I think these are really strong statements that will help us to move forward. So I thank you for those remarks.
Yep, thank you.
At this time, we are going to move to the panel discussion portion of the academic assembly. So I will start by introducing our esteemed panelists. I'll start by introducing Dr. Stanley James. Dr. James is the Vice Provost for Inclusion and Community Engagement in the Office of the University Provost. She is also a professor of African and American Studies in the School of Social Transformation in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. In addition, she has a joint appointment to the Women and Gender Studies program and is affiliated with Justice and Social Inquiry. Dr. James, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm very glad to be here. I had a few things that I wanted to talk about today. Not a long, detailed speech, but a few things that I think are worth thinking about. The first thing I wanted to mention was that from my perspective, I'm thinking that we are actually facing a triple pandemic. The health pandemic as represented by COVID-19, racism, and an economic pandemic. Recently, Marketplace on NPR has been doing something called, a series called Reimagining the Economy. And there were 3 or 4 things that I took away from that some of you are shaking your heads, so I'm hoping you heard this as well. You may recall that they mentioned that the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston had designed a survey to measure the wealth of households in the Boston area. And questions were asked on savings, on home ownership, on car ownership, on appraised jewelry, and other things as well. But the result was that they discovered that the net worth of the typical white household in the Boston area was $247,500, while the net worth of the typical Black household was $8. Second thing, the Marketplace Edison Research Group also commissioned a poll to measure economic insecurity. They found that economic insecurity was higher than it had ever been seen before. But they also found that financial anxiety of people who earned $25,000 a year or less, which is about 1/5 of the American population, did not go up. This was evidence, they felt, that low-income people were already living with pandemics of insecurity, pandemic levels of insecurity, well before the medical pandemic came to our attention. Darren Walker, the current president of the Ford Foundation, calls this a moment of reckoning in America. And he insists that the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis closed the door on the deniability of racism. And the fourth thing was that Mark Blyth, who's a political economist professor at Brown University, differentiates between 2 kinds of anger. First is the corrosive anger that pits factions against each other. And the second is a kind of righteous, moral anger that insists on being heard. He views this second kind of anger as the fuel for positive change. Much like Marketplace, but from a broader perspective, it is our job at ASU to be about the task of reimagining. We have to reimagine how we are going to teach our classes, how we will engage in our research, and how we will interact with each other. In essence, how do we reimagine America? America has not lived up to the promise found in the Declaration of Independence, nor the Constitution. And our history is one of tension between what is and what ought to be. I think that Langston Hughes captured this tension in his prescient poem, Let America Be America Again. I'm not sure if any of you have read it, but I wanted to share part of it with you. It's a very long poem. I won't read the whole thing. But I think even though it was written almost a century ago in 1935, it has something to say to us today. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be the great, strong land of love where never kings connived, nor tyrants schemed, that any man might be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wrath, but opportunity is real and life is free, equality in the air that we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in the homeland of the free. Oh, let America be America again, the land that has never been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man, Indian, Negro, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow is in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Oh yes, I say it plain. America was never America to me, and yet I swear the oath, America will be. Out of the wreck and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
Dr. James, thank you. Thank you for providing those. The statistics are indeed staggering and sobering. And we hear your call to reimagine how we think, how we communicate, and how we interact with each other. And thank you for sharing those inspiring words by Langston Hughes. I'll move to our next panelist at this time, Dr. Joshua LaBaer. He is the executive director of the Biodesign Institute, which developed the state's first saliva-based COVID-19 test, for which we are all very proud. Dr. LaBaer is a leading researcher in cancer and personalized medicine and is considered to be one of the nation's foremost investigators in the rapidly expanding field of personalized diagnostics. His efforts focus on the discovery and validation of biomarkers which can provide early warning for those at risk of major illnesses, including cancer and diabetes. Dr. LaBaer has contributed to more than 150 original research publications, reviews, and chapters. He is an associate editor of the Journal of Proteome Research, a recent member of the National Cancer Institute's Board of Scientific Advisors, chair of the Early Detection Research Network Steering Committee, and the recent president of the U.S. Human Proteome Organization. Welcome to the panel, Dr. LaBaer.
Hi, I didn't prepare any starting remarks. I just have questions you want me to answer. So
no worries.
Okay.
Our next panelist is Dr. Neil Woodbury. He is the interim executive vice president and chief science and technology officer for ASU's Knowledge Enterprise. In this capacity, he advances ASU's research, economic development, international development, and corporate engagement and strategic partnership agendas, as well as overseeing activities related to knowledge enterprise operations, institutes, and initiatives. Dr. Woodbury is also CEO of Science Foundation of Arizona, which promotes and advances STEM education, science, and high-tech industries across Arizona. He's an expert in the field of electron transfer and photosynthesis, and expanded his vast research repertoire as a human disease detective, co-founding HealthTel with ASU professor Stephen Johnston. Welcome, Dr. Woodbury. Oh, you're
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
wonderful, thank you. And our last panelist is Dr. Mark Searle. He is the Executive Vice President and University Provost. He is also a professor in the School of Community Resources and Development in the Watts College of Public Service and Community Solutions. Dr. Searle has been instrumental in advancing the university's goals toward higher levels of student achievement through the hiring of hundreds of new faculty members and the significant expansion of research and engagement across the institution. Additionally, Dr. Searle coordinates the university's international efforts, governing board relations, strategic goal setting, and many other initiatives. Welcome, Dr. Searle.
Nice to be here. Thank you, Samin.
All right, terrific. At this time, I'm going to introduce the University Senate campus presidents, and then we'll move into our questions. So our downtown campus Senate president is Ann Seabrook. Our Tempe University Senate campus president is Greg Stone. The president at the Polytechnic campus is Penny Dolan. And the Senate president at the West campus is Eduardo Pagan. Welcome, campus presidents as well. So the format of this panel will be such that each of the campus presidents in a round robin style will ask the panelists a question. So let's go to the downtown campus and start with Ann Seabrook.
On behalf of the faculty at the downtown Phoenix campus, I'd like to thank our panelists of university leaders for joining us and for your service as we kick off this academic year in these extraordinary times. And to echo what Samin said, it has been communicated to me that faculty are definitely missing the wine and cheese right about now. So, but our first question from the faculty, I'd like to direct to Dr. James. How has the composition of our tenure and tenure track faculty and leadership, chair and above, increased in its inclusion of women and people of color?
I don't have the statistics right at hand, but I can give you some general ideas. We have, and as far as gender is concerned, we're doing very well, I think. I think we're close to 50%, if not a little bit more, in overall, not, not by rank. So we're doing fairly well with that. We are not doing as well, obviously, with underrepresented minorities. We are hiring. We hired this year something like, I think it's close to 130 faculty, new faculty, 127, something like that. And I think in that hiring, we hired like 60 females and 60 males. So, I mean, that's kind of on parity. And again, as I mentioned, the underrepresented groups are less well represented. We hired 26 underrepresented minorities this year. So we had 4 people who did not disclose either gender or ethnicity, but that's where we are today.
Thank you.
I do want to mention, I think that's, I'll support what Dr. Crow was talking about. We do have one unit that in 40 years has never hired a Black faculty member. And that boggles the mind.
Indeed, Dr. James, I echo those remarks. And I think this is also part of the charge that President Crow has put out to all of us within the ASU community to do everything that we can to address some of these issues. And we look forward to engaging with them as well. Let's move now to the Tempe campus.
Hello, thank you to the panelists. I think in these unusual times, being able to provide information to our community is particularly valuable, even more so than normally. And I would like to address the first question to Provost Searle. How much change has there been in the extent to which our research dollars have focused on racial disparities and/or underserved populations?
Greg, thank you for the question. I don't know to what extent our research dollars have varied there. Dr. Woodbury may know or be able to get that information, but I can tell you that the institution continues to work toward its goal set out in the charter, and as Stanley so eloquently described our aspirations and our needs. But we have done some remarkable work all together with all of our efforts. And I mean, we've now more than doubled the minority representation, the underrepresented minority representation of our students. We have our first year class is typically in the 45% underrepresented minorities, and the Arizonans over 50%. And it's not just there where we've made improvements. So it's very important that, in 2002, when Michael became president, we had about 700 people who came from family income less than $40,000. This year we have approaching 3,000 families under $40,000 of income. So we've greatly increased our reach there. In retention, overall, we've increased 10 points since Michael arrived. But it's not just the majority population. It's not just whites. Whites are up 9.4%. Hispanics are up 11%. And African Americans are up 9.1%. So again, very important changes in total. In four-year graduation, we're up 22 points. The delta for our white students is 22. For African Americans, it's 9.1, and for Hispanics, it's 24.2. So we're making gains. We're not making enough gains, but we're making gains. And I think that we're working hard to try and do that. Same thing is happening on the six-year graduation rate. It's up across the board. There it's a little more even. Almost everybody's up about 11 points. African Americans, I think, might be lagging a point or so there. High demand degrees continue to be growing in terms of STEM degrees, education, other things like that. So I think, we're targeting the whole focus on trying to make sure that ASU is a representative institution is something we're continually striving for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Searle. Let's move now to Penny at the Polytechnic campus.
Hi, and welcome. And I echo all the other welcomes that were said, so I won't repeat them. This is a question, let's see, for Dr. LeBaire. News reports indicate that there has been a lack of testing capability across the country. Can our saliva test be rolled out to more places quickly? Could this be a possible revenue stream for the university?
That's a great question. So first of all, our testing capability, our first commitment is to ASU and our community. So we are going to make sure that whatever capacity we have first gets directed to us and our community. We want to make sure that we keep everybody here safe. As many of you know, we've already signed an agreement with the state of Arizona and offering free testing to the public. And so some of you may have seen that at the State Farm Stadium and now at the Diablo Stadium here in the East Valley and other places throughout the state, we are running public testing sites. So we have tests going on in almost all the counties now. So we are expanding testing within Arizona. We've also counseled people from all over the country on how to do our testing. We provided them with what are called standard operating procedures, so SOPs. We provided them with methods for how we do everything we do. If we turn out we still have capacity after all those commitments, we could certainly open up the possibility of helping others. But right now we are keeping busy with Arizona's localized testing. We have, at any given week, we have over 100 sites that we're running testing for the state of Arizona. So we're busy with all that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
That's very interesting, and it just goes to show that increased testing doesn't always result in more positive tests either, more positive cases. So it's great to know that our priorities are here within our own community, and then we'll extend outwards. Let's move now to Eduardo Pagan at the West Campus.
Thank you. On behalf of my colleagues here at the West Campus, I want to also thank the panelists for being here and for the comments you made as well. Let me start off, first of all, for Josh LaBerre. I just want to start off with a thank you for you and your team that I don't have to shove Q-tips into my brain. So thank you for that. This question is directed to Mark. And so Mark, as President Crow noted, this is a unique time in which many of us are having to retool, to relearn how we do what we do. For tenured faculty like myself, for the older folks, that impact of time means one thing. The concern that I have and our other senior colleagues have as well is that the impact of time this is going to have on junior faculty in terms of their productivity. Are there or will there be considerations made for our junior faculty to acknowledge and to accommodate the time commitments required to retool and relearn how we do what we do?
Well, thank you, Eduardo. I share your feelings about Josh's saliva-based test. It's much more pleasant. I would say that we share that concern. We want people to be successful. Ultimately, that's the goal. And you may recall that, and some may not, because there's a lot of flurry of activity when we went remote in March and the beginning of April. But we extended the tenure clock for all of our pre-tenure faculty at that point in time. And so that was in part to accommodate some of the disruption and all that's going on and continuing to go on this year. We're more than happy to welcome people's requests for another extension if they get through part of this year or all this year and they decide that their progress was severely impaired by events that were associated with the COVID-19. I would encourage them to make the request. We would honor that. We're not, as I said, our underlying motivation here is to help people be successful. So, I always view it this way: is that we've made a big investment when we've hired somebody new. We've also very often, in certain fields, we've also provided significant startup investment for them. And so I'd much rather give them a longer runway to see if they can be successful, to see whether in fact our investment yields continuing success. And that only helps the university as well as helping the individual. So we'll follow along with that in whatever way is necessary to help people be successful. In fact, just had a conversation today about making sure that people coming in who are new, that we've got their laboratories being developed and so forth, and we don't hold them up. But again, if they do get held up, we would automatically, give them an extension. So, and if there's more supports that we can do, we're looking at that. Some of you are aware that we sent out a note last week or 2 weeks ago, having contracted with this Busy Bees babysitting service. And for those who feel comfortable with it, that's great. They can take advantage of it. For those who don't, I understand. We also have some space in our child care facility on the Tempe campus for people to occasionally drop their children. They can make arrangements to leave them there for a few hours rather than have them there every day all the time. So we're working to find as many solutions as we can and trying to figure this out across all of our campuses. But we certainly want to support our faculty. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back around to the downtown campus. Ann Sebrin.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question to Provost Searle, are there any changes, specific changes or special considerations being given to the status of promotions or particularly annual reviews and merit pay this year?
Well, I guess I'll deal with the last thing first because it's the most important for most of us is, are we getting merit pay? It's unlikely that we're going to be able to do merit pay. We have been working very hard to not, sorry for the noise behind me, I can't control university traffic, but we've been working very hard to not have to take measures concerning faculty pay reductions or employee pay reductions. And so far we've been able to avoid that. We continue to look at that very carefully, but we are working very hard to try and ensure that we can sustain salaries to the full extent we can. And so we'll continue to evaluate that and see how we do, but we're working hard to try and do that, which is a contrast to almost all of our peer institutions, certainly here in the state. We've also not laid off any faculty. And so we have great enrollment, as the president was referring to, and we don't see any need for that. I know it was upsetting for us to have to put that contingency in appointment letters, but we did the same thing in 2009 and during the recession. And unfortunately, in 2009, we actually had to execute on some of those, but this time we've not had to do that. And I'm optimistic that we won't be, I'm hopeful at least that we won't have to reinsert that next year. As for promotion processes, et cetera, for this year, everything's kind of in, and it's kind of a baked process already, in the sense that, you know, the records are in and the files are in and so forth. Going forward, obviously, we would expect faculty to provide us any commentary whatsoever on how these events have mitigated any of their activities. And there may be lots of very good reasons why people weren't able to do this or that because of COVID. And we'd certainly want to take that into account in judging performance. And so we want to get that information in. I would also go so far as to say that we're very interested in trying to figure out better ways to understand what is often referred to as the invisible work of faculty, and particularly the invisible work of faculty of color, who tend to get a more burdensome responsibility as students of color seek them out in greater proportions to help them and mentor them and so forth. We need to find better ways to assess that and to credit people for that work that they're doing.
Thank you, Provost Searle. And I think it comes as a great relief to faculty to know that all those special considerations are going to be managed when they are going up for promotion and tenure. Let's go now to Tempe, Greg Stone.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to thank Dr. Woodbury for joining us. And I have a question for you. Can you discuss how COVID-19 test results are reported to the AZDHS? There is some concern from faculty that there's a lack of transparency with regard to the reporting of COVID-19 cases.
So like any group that does testing, we have to report all of our results to ADHS. And this happens in the Biodesign Institute. Josh LeBaer's group there will do tests. They have a very well-defined procedure which follows HIPAA rules, which are the rules that we all have to follow with regard to healthcare data. And that data is then processed, and both the individual that is tested is provided with an answer, and an answer is provided to our Department of Health. And so in that respect, all data gets reported the way, you know, as you would expect to Department of Health. In terms of transparency, this is actually an issue we spend a tremendous amount of time trying to talk about, and it's this balance between transparency and privacy. I actually spent over a half an hour today talking to DHS about this very issue and where they are in this balance, because we were trying to work with them on some data. I think President Crow alluded to this negotiation on zip code data. They consider zip codes to be a very small place to make any kind of report of data. And because it's already been demonstrated that people can take that information and go right down to the individual and actually identify records associated with the individual. So right now we're trying to figure out the best way to keep everybody informed, as President Crow was talking about things like positivity and whatnot, without putting our students and our faculty in a position where someone can identify an individual's health status. And so that's where we're at right now, but we really do want to make sure people are well informed. They can make decisions, they can make intelligent decisions about the situation, but at the same time, we keep individuals' privacy.
Well, thanks. I think that helps a lot.
I would second that. I think that is this delicate balance of making sure that the privacy of those within the ASU community is well protected, while at the same time being able to provide as much information as possible. So we appreciate your efforts toward that end. Let's move now to the Polytechnic campus. Penny Dolan.
All right. I have a question for Dr. James, and I also want to thank you for reading that absolutely wonderful poem. Very, very powerful. So the question that I have for you is, what are your thoughts on implementing a mandatory course in African American Studies for all incoming freshmen and building a multicultural center at ASU? These two ideas seem to have a lot of support from faculty, staff, and students.
It's interesting that you ask about the course. I have a lot of thoughts about that. Many years ago, when I was at the University of Wisconsin, such a initiative was established that all of our students, wasn't for freshmen, it was for, you had to take a course in ethnic studies, one course sometime during your the time that you were there at the university. And at that time, it was we had an Afro-American Studies department, which I was chair of, and there weren't other particular ethnic groups at that time. So it fell to us to try to provide this. Well, it was quite a problem because, first of all, because it was a 4-year requirement, excuse me, sometimes students didn't show up to take the class until their senior year, preferably the last semester of their senior year, and they could have cared less about it. So, and they took any course that they could find. They didn't care what the course was. They didn't take the introductory level courses, those kinds of things. So what we ended up having to do was to make sure that we had requirements on all of the upper level courses so people couldn't just get into them. And then we built courses that were large introductory level courses, 300-400 people or more. And we took our best professors and put them in those courses to teach them. And then we provided them with support. You know, there were TAs 4 or 5 TAs to teach the courses. And what happened was that it was an interesting experiment because we're in the state of Wisconsin, which does not have a large Black population. And there wasn't a large number of Black students there. But what we got were 400 or 500 students, some of which happened to be Black, but most of which were white at that time. And what we got were people who got very interested in the subject matter and ended up majoring or minoring in Afro-American studies. So we had a very, very well integrated department. We also had faculty that was well in our faculty was not quite half white and half Black. So we were presenting to students what it could be like, first of all, to take a course in that kind of a setting. And we also provided them with the understanding that this kind of class wasn't just for Black people. It was for all people. You know, we were teaching American history. We were teaching history of that sort. Now, fast forward to today, what I think is that you cannot limit this to only a course in Afro-American or African-American history. We have American Indians, we have Latinx, we have Asian Pacific American Studies. We have a lot of different groups that make up the state of Arizona, not to mention the United States. So I think that we have to think more carefully about how we want to do this so that we are not being exclusive. We have to be inclusive of opportunities for all these different groups to be available, or to have an opportunity to be represented in the story of America. And I think we can do that. We have, you know, we have American Indian Studies. We also have SST. We have border, you know, the border studies program. So we have the potential for people to take those courses, and we have to figure out a way to be able to encourage them. I don't think it has to be limited only to the first year. So that's one thing. The second thing, I think the question was about the Multicultural Center. And I think it was interesting to hear what Michael Crow had to say about that. Because since I've been here, that's not been one thing that we were particularly interested in. But I do think that this is a question that Dr. Rund and Dr. Vogel, who are very much involved in student affairs, will need to be involved with. I have seen multicultural centers in other parts of the country and at other universities. The one that comes to mind is the University of Washington in Seattle. They have a gorgeous center. It houses LGBTQ, Hispanics, African American studies, and Latinx students. And they each have separate parts of the building that they are in, but they also have large areas where they come together. And the American Indians have their own longhouse on that particular campus. We have to think about the fact that we have 4 campuses. So are we going to have 4 multicultural centers or 1 multicultural center? Or are we going to use the pavilion? There are many questions that I think have to be addressed. But I think that because we're in a time where there is a space for us to reimagine who we are and what we're going to be, that's a question that will be on the table.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for your answer for that.
Thank you, Dr. James. And that just illustrates just one of the complexities that we have here at ASU, being a multi-campus institution when we're looking to implement something like a multicultural center. But fortunately, we're having the conversation. We're starting to really think about that. All right, thank you, Penny, for asking that question. Let's move now to the West Campus with Eduardo.
Hi, so this question is for both Mark Searle and Stanley James. And again, this is following up on the earlier question. I think a lot of our colleagues are under the perception that when it comes to diversity hiring at ASU, that this is very much a top-down driven process. Would you care to comment about what faculty should be doing to encourage their units to be very broad in their recruitment, but also to be very broad in their hiring?
Okay. I think he's having a call, so it seems to fall to me. Lucky him. I would say that one of the things that I have to say about faculty hiring is that this is a very complicated situation. There's not a simple answer to it. One of the things that we know is that we have to work with our search committees so that they are trained, I guess you could say, to be open to the diversity that is possible. Let me back up and say one thing about this business of faculty hiring. You know, we have to think differently. One of the things that I hear people saying, especially if somebody retires in a unit, oh, so-and-so has retired and they used to teach such and such a classes. We need to replace them with somebody who can do those classes. That is not what we need to do. What we need to do is to recognize that all of our fields are progressing and there is new knowledge, there's new research, and that what we need to be doing is thinking about hiring people who are engaged in producing that new knowledge. They're not being hired to replace someone else. You know, they're being hired to do their own position. So we're doing things differently than we did 50 years ago. We're much more interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, which means that we need to be able to hire people who either are interdisciplinary or who are prepared to work with people from different disciplines. We also, according to our charter and according to what we need to be doing, are concerned about making an impact on the communities that we live in and that our students live in. So we need to be able to find that the research that people do about the community is as important as some of the other research. So that means that our search committees have to be taught how to be able to read CVs, to understand what the situation is that we are living in, and be prepared to think about hiring so that we can be responsive to those needs. So it's a different thing. Then once we get them here, we have to be sure that we provide ways for them to be mentored and ways for them to become at home in this university. And part of that means that we can't just hire one person in chemistry or one person in political science or one person in English. We may need to think about hiring cohorts of faculty, underrepresented faculty who have similar interest, research interests, so that we can begin to build a strong faculty who feels comfortable and who feel that they belong to this institution and who are willing to stay. And they don't have to stay, by the way. I want to make sure that you understand that there are so few of us who are people of color that we are on, if we go on the market, people are looking for us. So we have to make ASU a place that people want to come and people want to stay, and where they feel that they can do the work that they want to do, the important work that they need to do.
Thank you.
Dr. James, thank you. And I think a perfect example of moving toward this more multidisciplinary approach is the formation of the new College of Global Futures.
Yeah.
I think we'll look to see exactly how bringing these different disciplines and faculty with their various areas of expertise and experience together. So it is very exciting.
So I would say, I would add to that we know that the scientists have been, talking to each other across disciplines. But what you also have to know is that the ethnic studies have been multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. They have led the way in how this should be done. So we should be looking to those two groups to provide us with help on how we get this done.
Terrific. All right, let's go to the downtown campus. Ann Sebren.
Thank you. I have another question from the faculty for Dr. Woodbury. And I think Dr. Crow, President Crow mentioned this in his remarks. Is ASU using pooled or high volume COVID testing within the ASU community with the goal of significantly increasing testing surveillance in an economical way.
So in some sense, Dr. Libera may wish to jump in on this because he's directly involved in trying to develop this capability, but his team is in the process of trying to get that completely developed and worked through. There are some issues associated with testing that capability in multiple ways to make sure that the FDA will accept it and whatnot. And if you want details, he can provide that. Right now, we don't have a big issue with regard to the testing capacity per se. We have lots of capacity at the moment compared to what we're doing. Now, we will be growing the number of tests that we're doing, and he is in the process of growing his entire operation right now to make that possible so that we can easily accommodate those tests. And by then going to a pooling situation, then that would allow it to grow even farther. But I don't foresee, and if he has comments, he's welcome to make it, that capacity is at least in the near term an issue for us. We do want to ultimately utilize any method we can to decrease costs. That's always a good thing to do, and so I think that will be coming as well. But we right now we have a lot of capacity.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to what Neil just said. We are building our capacity. We're waiting for one last robot to arrive that is kind of a linchpin to the whole process that will help accelerate our numbers considerably. But then once that arrives, we'll continue our advancement on the pooling strategy, which would buy us kind of a fourfold savings in cost. But it does take a little bit longer to do pooling because you test pools first, and then you have to what's called deconvolute any positive pools to figure out which person in that pool was the one who was positive if it's a positive pool. So, but all that's to come.
All right, that's very good information and good to know. Let's go to the Tempe campus. Greg.
Oh, yes, I have another question for Dr. Searle. We've heard that we can expect changes to our health benefit options. Can you give us an idea of what these changes may include and how these changes will impact ASU employees, particularly considering that we're living through a pandemic?
Yeah, Greg, this is a really important question, and one I share our collective personal interests in this one. Unfortunately, we are still dependent, I guess, on the state. They don't consult with us. They choose the health plans that we have. And I don't have very much information yet on this. I do know that they are planning to narrow the carriers to United and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so the other two carriers, which I believe were Cigna and Aetna, will be dropped with this change. What I don't know is exactly how the plans will be constructed and what options we'll have. It has been our goal to actually get out of these plans so that we could do it ourselves, as NAU has that authority, but the U of A and ASU have been not allowed out of the state plan, largely because we have a very healthy workforce, and I think we tend to lower the overall costs for the state. But we would love to be able to offer a better package for our employees if we could. So as soon as we get some more information, we'll definitely share it. But at this point, that's about all I've got.
Okay, thanks. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Penny at the Polytechnic campus. Do you have a question?
Sorry, my printer just started waking up. Yes, actually, Provost Searle, I'm going to have a question for you again. I know this is a bit of a sensitive question in light of recent news reports, but it's been asked by a lot of faculty. What metrics would trigger a move from ASU Sync in-person instruction to ASU Sync remote?
Yeah, I think President Crow spoke to this somewhat on the webinar we did that Samin hosted and asked the questions. And at that point, the president pointed out that we're monitoring all the information that we're all looking for, which is the rate of transmission rate, which right now Arizona enjoys about the lowest rate in the nation. And I think it's about 0.8, which is, or could be plus or minus 0.2. Neil can correct me here. I think that's about right. And which means that one person who's infected is infecting less than one other person on average. And so that's always good news. The overall rates in the state continue to drop, as was mentioned before, so that it's more like it was in late May. So, you know, as the president said, if we were in the state of affairs in kind of late June and around July 4th, we would not be assembling in person. We couldn't do it. But the trend continues to improve, and we continue to try and do the best we can. So we haven't set specific benchmarks that said at this level we'll definitely do this or do that, but we're looking at those array of things and then making the judgments on a daily basis. And as the president mentioned, the executive team meets twice daily. And we actually have been meeting since March twice daily. The only thing we've done recently is go to 5 days a week from 7 days a week. We've been doing that to monitor this. I mean, one of the things Neil reports on at every meeting is how are we doing? And Dr. Vogel, our Vice President of Student Services, reports on what's going on among the student population, et cetera, so that we can make those judgments if we have to on a daily basis and take the appropriate action. And it's always, you know, important to keep in mind that you could have a high volume of cases on a particular day, but then you have to see, are they all in one dorm? In which case the issue is then the dorm. How do we manage the dorm? How do we manage the students there, as opposed to across the institution, which would be a different kind of indicator. So we're looking at all those kinds of factors as we judge how we go forward. But I understand the question. I understand what underscores it.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I was also relieved to hear President Crow's remarks about taking swift and severe action against those parties or students who might have been involved in some of the parties that could impact the transmission rates of the virus, and that this is something that's taken extremely seriously by the university. All right, thank you, Penny. Let's see, Eduardo, West Campus?
Yes, I just want to begin my question by saying that there's a lot of excitement around the College of Global Futures. As a historian, I just have to put this out there. It would be really exciting to have a College of Global Pasts. Now, that said, I have a request from from one of my faculty for Josh LaBerre. Where can we find the information about the studies that have validated the saliva COVID test?
Right. Well, there are the studies that have done the most in terms of validating saliva have been out of Yale. They've done the most. Rutgers has done a few studies. To be fair, a lot of folks, including us, we did some quick comparisons of the saliva test to the nasopharyngeal test. We did side-by-side comparisons and saw no difference. So we kind of moved straight ahead with saliva. So right now, ASU has done around 70,000 saliva tests already. We've done quite a few of them already. The test that we use to look for virus in the saliva is the same test that's used for the nasopharyngeal swabs, just a different sample. It's called the qPCR test, and we test for 3 genes in the virus. We also have what's called a positive control test, which is a virus that we add to the sample to show that everything in the assay worked. And that is always positive in our hands. If it isn't, then we don't trust the sample. So by and large, our sensitivity and specificity is around 100% if there are at least 200 viruses in the sample. Most people, when they have a positive test, have around 10,000 viruses per sample. So 200 is quite low. It's a very, very sensitive test. By and large, this test is what most people refer to as the gold standard for tests. So we're pretty confident that it's a good test.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Anne, downtown campus.
Thank you. This is a follow-up question for Provost Searle on comments he made earlier regarding the improvements in retention and graduation for students of color. Have we made progress in the recruitment of students of color at all levels in all colleges, including the Honors College, and in the awarding of prestigious fellowships and honors?
Sorry, Ann was on mute. Thank you. I'm happy to speak to that. I know that the Honors College has increased their underrepresented student population by 150%, which compares to only about a 90% increase in white students in the Honors College. So they have made significant strides in diversifying their student body, and I've been very pleased to see that. And they have recently started, not there yet by a long shot, but started on building a more diverse faculty as well, which is very important. In terms of other schools, just so you know, like Fulton, the schools of engineering, underrepresented minorities have increased also about 150%, whereas white students have increased maybe 90 or 100%. So again, we're increasing our underrepresented student population at a very high rate, and I think that's very important. You were asking about also, I do want to mention that graduate students also are much more representative now than they used to be. And so it's not only at the undergraduate level that this is happening, but also at the graduate level. I'm sorry, but I think I forgot some of the other parts of the question.
The last part of the question was regarding the awarding of prestigious fellowships and honors.
Right. So we've actually done a great job of recruiting more people who earn those honors or who come with those honors at the university. You know, we have, I'm not sure everybody knows that we have 7 Pulitzer Prize winners at the university, or that we have 5 Nobel laureates or 5 MacArthur winners. But not all of them by any stretch of the imagination are underrepresented, and most of them are not. Natalie Diaz clearly was an outstanding selection by MacArthur last year as a MacArthur Fellow. But we still have work to do there. Among our students, I don't have the data, but what I am seeing is increasing numbers of underrepresented students earning Fulbrights, earning other prestigious awards, and being able to study with those kinds of supports. But I can look and see if we can get better numbers on that. But from what I've seen, just looking at the groups who come out of Truman's and others, that we're getting a more diverse student body in those award categories.
Thank you very much. We have just a few minutes left, and I hope that our campus presidents don't mind if I intervene. I am receiving a few questions kind of in live time here that I'd like to pose to our panelists. And so this next question is for Dr. Woodbury and Dr. LaBaer. There have been some mention of ASU developing a dashboard as a way of providing some of the recent updates and perhaps some of the numbers related to COVID testing and positive test cases. Can you provide us with any information about the possibility of creating something like a dashboard?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing process, and we're deeply involved in it right now. In fact, as I mentioned a little while ago, I've been on the phone and emails and whatnot back and forth with our Department of Health in terms of exactly what we can put out, what we can't put out. And there are a lot of concerns about what you put out with regard to privacy. To be honest with you, what other people are putting out, our Department of Health is not necessarily very happy with. So we are looking into that in detail, and we'll come up with a method that will work and will allow that information to get out. So I think we'll be in coming days, we should be able to put something out.
All right, terrific.
I'll just add real quickly. Although it's not specific to ASU, Biodesign does have a COVID trends page. that covers the state of Arizona pretty thoroughly. And anybody who wants to see that, if you just go to the Biodesign website, there's a link right there on the front page of the website. It covers county by county, and it talks in general about what's going on here and across the nation.
That's right. Anything at the county level or higher, you have there's that site, there's the 88 site, there's various places you can get that level data. It's getting down to more granular data that becomes a little more complex.
I understand. I think part of the question stems from seeing what other institutions are doing in terms of the reporting that they provide, you know, through their communications and through their websites, and where ASU might fall relative to that type of reporting.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I did receive another question. This is following President Crow's remarks. And the question, I'll just read it. It says, when you listen to President Crow and others on the vision of ASU, you are inspired. But then you think about how challenging it's going to be to realize the promise of ASU's charter, especially in the midst of COVID. Many administrators do make social justice a priority, but many faculty may not. How do we unify the faculty to advocate for social justice so that these ideas pervade and become a part of our culture? Because it only works when there is buy-in from everyone. That is from the top down and from the bottom up. Provost Searle, Dr. James, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. There can be no disagreement with the premise that underscores the comment. It is absolutely true that we need to build a strong level of buy-in across the institution. I think that this moment in time has given rise to a level of action that we haven't seen before, a level of mobilization of effort that we haven't seen before. The kinds of leadership that Dr. James brings to my office and to the university as a result is extraordinarily important as we try and drive this. And Dr. Clark, as she looks to train faculty on all search committees differently and so forth. So I think that we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I don't think anybody is thinking we're going to get there quickly because it's hard work, and changing attitudes and changing perspectives takes time. And so we will continue at it, but I think the president's going to announce a pretty extensive range of initiatives. And as he has said before, this is not the end of what he plans to do, it's only the beginning. And I think with that kind of leadership, I think our chances are much greater than they would otherwise be. I also think that this fact that we have done such a great job of diversifying our student body, and those students now put expectations on us that we are going to do things differently. We are going to look different. And so we need to live up to that. And I think that they will be another source of motivation as well as from top down and bottom up. So Stanley may want to comment further.
Oh, I think you did. You said it very well. One of the things that I think is happening and that I hope is happening, we've had times in our history before where we thought we would make big changes, and we did make changes. The 60s come to mind. But I feel like that we are in a very different situation now. As I mentioned, these 3 pandemics earlier on, what that says to me is that we have lots of disasters sort of converging all at once. And what I think is not going to happen, and what I hope won't happen, is that we will not be returning to what others have considered to be normal. We're not going to go back to the way that it used to be. And that's why I talk about reimagining or re-envisioning or envisioning new kinds of things. This is going to be very difficult. I have no illusions that we will solve all the problems, but I do have hope that because of what is happening now, we can get to a place where we can make a difference. We can solve a lot of things, or we can make a lot of changes or transformations. There will always be more to do, but we are I think, in a position where people are beginning to talk about doing things differently. You know, I was just listening today, they were talking about the fact that so many people are not working, or they are working remotely, and that they don't want to go back into the office. So what does that mean? What kind of offices will we have, you know, next year? Will we have to get rid of office space, you know, that we've had previously? We're all working differently than we did prior to all of this happening. And I think we have to, that means that it's going to transform or make changes that we may not have ever thought about before, we may not have ever dreamed about, but that we have an opportunity to do that now and to make a difference.
Thank you very much. Well, we have approached the hour mark, and on behalf of our campus presidents, on behalf of the University Senate and the Academic Assembly, I want to thank you, Dr. James, Provost Searle, Dr. LeBaire, and Dr. Woodbury, for joining this panel and for answering the questions that have been submitted by the Academic Assembly. It was very engaging, and we're greatly appreciative of your time and the remarks that you provided. So with that said, this concludes the Fall 2020 Academic Assembly. I wish everyone a wonderful, healthy, and productive fall semester, and we'll look forward to doing it again in the spring. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.